Greetings to Africans around the world. This is King Echu from Southern Cameroon, Amazonia. This is a discussion that I want to have, and this discussion has to do with the coronavirus vaccine. Bill Gates confident coronavirus vaccine will work in Africa, but Africans on Twitter are not having it. I am really happy with the fact that many Africans are speaking up against this coronavirus vaccine. But for Africans to really have real change in the continent of Africa, Pan-African movement must be set in motion. Pan-African unity must be set in motion. If you notice the way the world works when it comes to Africa is the fact that the richer nations use our leaders to get what they want and to implement what they want in Africa, while the people of Africa suffer through that plight. So for Africa to have real change, to have real control over their continent, a strong movement, the Pan-African movement and the Pan-African unity, where the people will come together and express themselves with action in changing the continent of Africa. As you've noticed, two French doctors came on live video and stated that they're going to use Africans as guinea pigs to test their coronavirus. Meanwhile, the African people are not affected as much compared to other nations like Italy, United States, even China, or any other nation in general. The percentage of people who have been diagnosed with the coronavirus are low compared to any other places in Africa. But they want to test the corona vaccine, the potential corona vaccine on Africans. Do you know why the doctors, those two French doctors, can come on live TV and make such statement? It is because since the West and Arabs came to Africa, colonized Africa, enslaved Africans, they saw Africans as less of a human beings. They saw Africans as less of a human being. As a matter of fact, the United States said black people are 3/4 of a human being. And through the white supremacy mentality and ideology that has been passed down, many other nations, including India, China, nations in the West, go through that. They look at Africans through that perspective. They have dehumanized us to the point where they can come on live TV and say that they're going to use Africans as guinea pigs to test their coronavirus. Meanwhile, the people that suffer the most when it comes to the coronavirus are whites, Chinese, and the rest of the world in general, besides Africa. But they could do that because they don't see Africans as human beings. Wherever you go in the world, black people are at the bottom. The police treat black people without no humanity. In Brazil, they kill black people. The police kill so many black people and get away with it. Wherever you go in the world, in China itself, the citizen can beat black people and get away with it. In the Arab nations, they could do that. Beat you. You're working for them, they don't care. They can do anything to you. And even in some Arab African countries, they do that to black people, still enslave black people. Why? Because they see black people less of a human being. So blacks, Africans, for us to say no to coronavirus, we must stand united as Africans, from West Africa to Central Africa to East Africa to Southern Africa and Northern Africa. We must stand as one through Pan-African unity, so that we could kick out some of these of our leaders who support the West and accepted the ideologies and whatever decision that the West suggests or say, they just welcome without questioning. Only through Pan-Africanism can we do that. Only through the unification or uniting Africa can we do that. But if we don't, we will suffer and continue to suffer, and this will never stop. As a matter of fact, on Saturday, the African President Cyril Ramaphosa posted a tweet saying that Bill Gates Foundation has supported the country's health needs for assistance with innovative mass-based testing kits and research, whatever. So because he supported the government of Southern Cameroon, he welcomes the idea of the coronavirus. He welcomes it. This is nonsense. And President Ramaphosa is not only the president of South Africa, but the head of the African Union. But you guys seem to forget one thing about the Bill Gates. Bill Gates has worked so hard to depopulate Africa. He wants Africa to be depopulated. The billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates has delivered a stark warning on population growth in Africa, saying if left unchecked, it could unravel decades of progress and fuel instability across the globe. But the world seems to forget one thing. Whenever the world needs resources, the world goes to Africa. Take those resources, exploit Africa, take those resources and sell them in higher prices, especially back to Africans, which helps destabilize the economy of Africa. Yet, he says, the population of, if they don't check the population of Africa, it will cause instability across the globe. But they have been causing instability in Africa for so many years. They came, they colonized, they enslaved, made themselves rich. They haven't paid for colonization and slavery. But yet they're still exploiting Africa and using the resources of Africa to still make themselves rich by making sure that the leaders that they have in Africa support their ideologies and they support their ideologies and whatever they need out of Africa. Which is why Cyril Ramaphosa will support Bill Gates in this coronavirus vaccine, when the people who suffer the most from the coronavirus are not the Africans. So why should we be tested so that those who are suffering the most will benefit. They should test those who are suffering the most so that they can find a cure from them, not from us, not from us Africans. They have used us so much. It's time to say no. And it's time for Africans to rise up. A global Pan-African revolution. So that we can actually create a better and strong economy for Black people. So that we will not be dependent on the West or the East. As a matter of fact, Bill Gates has talked so much about depopulating the African continent. But you seem to forget one thing. The population of Africa is 1.216 billion. The population of China is 1.386 billion. More than Africa. The population of India is population of India is I had it here. Oh, the population of India is 1.339 billion. When it comes to size, geographical size, Africa is way, way bigger than India, but India has more population. Why is it that Bill Gates is not spending more time talking about depopulating India? As a matter of fact, projections of the Indian population by 2050 will be 273. Would be 2.5 billion to 4.5 billion people by 2050. It's going to take over China by 2050. But Bill Gates doesn't spend time talking to the Indian people to depopulate India when the landmass is way smaller than the landmass of Africa, and their population is way bigger than the population of Africa. So I ask, why is he not spending more time doing that? Simply because the resources in India is nothing as compared to the resources in Africa. By depopulating Africa, and they will gain more resources in Africa to do whatever they want. So we Africans must rise up. We must speak with one voice when it comes to the continent of Africa, because the continent of Africa affects us all. It affects us all as Africans. As we allow or continue to allow the West, the East to influence the destiny of Africa, so shall we give up our rights as Africans to speak for ourselves. So we must speak for ourselves. We must stand united, because the world is against Africa, whether they like it or not. It doesn't matter who it's Bill Gates or whoever. They give a damn about themselves and making sure that they survive. Africa must think survival and rise against any other nation that try to kick it, try to take away their survivorship. We must rise as a people, and we must speak with one voice as Africans, or pay the price. This is King H. Till next time.